special North West Tonight programme. All this year, we have been bringing you stories of the men and women caught up in the terrible conflicts of the First World War, which started a century ago. Tonight, we will be commemorating a very special band of friends whose sacrifice went down in history. The 11th Service Battalion of the East Lancashire Regiment, better known, of course, as the Accrington Pals.
They were friends from villages and towns around this part of Lancashire who came together to go and fight for their country. In fact, they left from this very church in February 1915. On this night, the 23rd of December 1914, their fate, of course, was unknown. They were to all die at the Somme. But here in Accrington and across the region, on this night, there was a sense of optimism that the war might be over in just a matter of days or even months. But it wasn't to be. This is how people were preparing across the Northwest for their first wartime Christmas.
Here in Manchester, they've taken on their first women police officers to deal with rowdy groups of newly liberated young women who have money in their pockets thanks to their war work. They've arrested two so far, Maud Jones and Amy Smart, said to be women who were well-dressed and of respectable backgrounds. They're accused of molesting soldiers here on Market Street. Amy Smart said they were just having fun.
At the Mechanics Institute in Burnley last night, Colonel Johnson of the East Lancs Reserve demanded more volunteers for the war effort. In a forcible speech, he declared that if the Germans invaded, they would surely march through Burnley, and the atrocities visited upon its citizens would be worse than those suffered by the unfortunate Belgians.
Yesterday, 12 more wounded soldiers arrived. Any gifts of Christmas puddings or festive games will be greatly appreciated.
The Manchester theatres at Christmas. Betty looks like being a huge success at the Prince's, where the humour will be breezy and brisk.
At the Hippodrome, there'll be scenes illustrating the Germans in Belgium, featuring the greatest battle scenes ever staged.
Young men attending Everton and Liverpool games over Christmas are being warned that the Earl of Derby and some of his staff will be there, carrying out a census trying to find out how many men are shirking the army's recruitment drive. One newspaper says it's fitting that the shirkers will be travelling on the last German-built tram.
Killed in action, latest list. Broomhead, Private J, Devonshire Street, Hume, Manchester Regiment. Duke, Private J, Manchester Regiment. Edwards, Private R, Lancashire Fusiliers. Forest, Private E, Manchester Road, Burnley, Lancashire.
Here at the Liverpool landing stage, it was a happy Christmas for 150 enemy prisoners, colonial troops from Togoland and Cameroon who were disembarking. The Echo reports that they seemed glad to be out of the conflict. Loud cheering could be heard from the ship.
Casualty list: killed, Loyal North Lancashire, Bartlett, Lance Sergeant R. Broadley, W. Carter, Lance Sergeant T. Creasy, A. Duncan.
Christmas as usual. Richard Jones & Co. Choice selection of useful presents.
The Rubber Company, Werburgh Street, Chester. Presents for your soldier friends at home and abroad.
Christmas shopping at Browns of Chester. New and commodious showrooms.
Letter Home. Private T.A. Lyons of Liverpool. In the trenches you don't sleep at night, and all night long the great blue lights are being thrown up by the Germans and light the place like day.
Latest casualty list. December the 22nd, posted at Chester Castle. Cheshire Regiment. Lamb, Private G, frostbite. Meredith, Corporal J, gunshot wounds left arm, chest and chin. Green, P.
That was the picture then right across the northwest as they prepared for Christmas a century ago. A mood of determined optimism which was reflected here in this town in Accrington. The pals going into their final few weeks of training just after the Christmas, the final Christmas that many of them would spend with their families. This chapel here is dedicated to the pals in St John's Church. It is a commemoration of the men who fell. Many of them, 584, died in the first few moments of the Battle of the Somme. And on the wall here behind us, you can see the drum. It was the drum which was sounded as the pals went over the top. Peter Marshall takes up the story of the Accrington pals.
Their words, deeds and their sacrifice have gone down in history.
Before we got over the parapet, they had machine guns on us, but we went on.
We knew we were going to certain death, but not one man faltered.
The Accrington pals, fathers, brothers, friends, workmates, who joined Kitchener's army together and died together, decimated in the first 20 minutes of the Battle of the Somme.
We were able to see our comrades move forward, only to be mown down like meadow grass.
That was raw courage to do something like that. And my grandfather was one of them.
Gilbert Parkinson never met his grandfather, William Henry Parkinson. William was a family man, an iron foundry worker in Accrington. He died on day one at the Somme, long before Gilbert was born. But his memory inspires.
He was someone to look up to. He did things that normal people don't do. He's such a poignant figure in my estimation. He is my hero.
Christmas 1914, here envisioned at a special event by the Bacup Natural History Society, was the last Christmas many of the pals would spend with their families. Recruitment had started the previous September, and the pals were still undergoing training.
They were treated like heroes. And people would shout, "The pals are coming, the pals are coming." And they would all rush to the place where they were marching along to the side of the road, and they'd cheer them like heroes.
This film shows the Pals Regiment, which included men from all over Lancashire, marching through Accrington in August 1915, a few short months before the tragedy on the Somme. Gilbert Parkinson and many other people continue to be inspired by the fortitude of the pals.
Looking forward, over no man's land, walking those fields, you're walking in the steps of heroes. And to stand at his graveside, it's a funny feeling. You just feel so near to him. We will remember them. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. I will always remember.
Let's talk to Les Bond, a local historian, and Captain Shelley Whitehead, who works with the Army Cadets. Les, to you first of all, why did so many men sign up?
This county was in a recession, part of a national recession. Large families in those days, lots of kids to feed. So they were being offered a guinea a week to train for a war that would be over by Christmas.
Well, so we thought. It wasn't to be that way, of course. And other places as well contributed PALS regiments, didn't they? Liverpool we featured in the summer, other places in Lancashire.
Yeah, the Lancashire Fusiliers, they were based in Bury. Lads from Accrington were in the Fusiliers. Not everybody from Accrington was in the PALS. And they were able to feed the family on a guinea a week. So suddenly they had money coming in.
Shelley Whitehead, how important is it that we keep the memory of what these men did and many other men like them in other wars as well alive for the next generation?
I think it's really important that we remember the sacrifice that they actually made, that they signed up together as pals, they went to serve as pals, and we need to remember them as pals. They were local boys, and even Remembrance Sunday isn't enough. We need to remember them quite sufficiently all the way through the year.
And is the memory as strong now as ever in the centenary year?
I think we've had a lot of interest in the pals themselves, but also in other First World War relatives, so that the children at school are doing it as a local history project. I've been into school and spoken to my reception class that I'm a governor of. We did what's in a soldier's pockets, so we looked at what they were carrying, and I did it as to what I was carrying in Iraq, same sort of thing. So it's to bring it up to date, that they need to know what's happening.
Captain Shelley Whitehead, thank you very much indeed. Les Bond to you as well. Annabelle.
Roger, thank you very much. Well, for all the soldiers and their families, it was, of course, incredibly important to stay in touch, particularly at this time of year. But as you can imagine, in 1914, there was no internet, there was no Skype, there were no phones, so they had to rely on postcards and letters. Now, the British government used the supply lines to the front to build an incredibly efficient postal service so that the loved ones back home could get a glimpse of what Christmas Day was like for the soldiers out there on the front line.
Lieutenant Charles Brockbank, 6th Battalion, Cheshire Regiment.
Nurse Sarah McNaughton at the Fernfield Station in Belgium.
Second Lieutenant Roger Leach, 1st Battalion, King's Own Royal Lancaster Regiment.
My Christmas Day began at midnight when I walked home through the moonlit empty streets of Fern. At 2 a.m. the guns began to roar and roared all night. They say the Allies are making an attack.
I spent the most agonising nights I ever remember, owing to the cold. It was freezing terribly hard, and as we were in support trenches, we're not allowed fires. I quite thought I was frostbitten.
But the Postal Service then grew immensely in a very short space of time, and even from the front, within 24 hours they could be delivered back in the UK. And indeed some cities and towns could have as many as 6 deliveries that day.
Dearest Mother, I think we must have had a decidedly more cheerful Christmas than you at home. For a start, on getting into billet, I found 15 parcels waiting for me.
Even allowing for the soldier being, shall we say, not being that adept at writing letters, it would be encouraged, because if you're sitting at home and you don't really know what's going on, it would be very hard work.
After breakfast, I went to the soup kitchen at the station as usual, then home. That is, to the hospital to lunch. At 3:15 came a sort of evensong with hymns, and then we went to the civil hospital, where there was a Christmas tree for all the Belgian refugee children. Anything more touching I never saw.
It's about 2:30. All firing ceased, and the Germans started shouting to us, "Come out, have a drink." And then one of them climbed out of the trench without his equipment on. So one of ours did the same.
Constant themes are, to a certain extent, the hardship, but certainly appreciation of letters coming back from home.
Someone produced a little rubber ball, so of course a football match started. We exchanged various things, and I got a cap badge, belt buckle, whistle, rifle cartridge purse, and tea tablets.
There were also Princess Mary's presents, which consisted of a packet of cigarettes, a pipe, a packet of tobacco, and a Christmas card from King and Queen. And so ended Christmas Day 1914. One couldn't have asked for more.
And so to bed. Very cold, and rather too inclined to think about home.
And our thanks to the local actors who helped us by taking part in that film.
Now, we will be back in Accrington shortly, but let's go back to the studio now for a roundup of the day's stories with Naomi Cornwell.
Thank you, Annabelle. A 24-year-old man from Manchester has been charged with 5 terrorism offences. Mohammed Suleiman from Crumpsall was arrested on Saturday. He'll appear before Westminster magistrates tomorrow. Police say there's no threat to the community. 2 men accused of murdering an off-duty police officer in Liverpool have appeared in court. PC Neil Doyle was attacked in the city centre in the early hours of Friday morning during a Christmas night out with colleagues. 28-year-old Andrew Taylor from Huyton and Christopher Spendlove, who's 30 and from Stockbridge Village, were remanded in custody until January the 6th. Police are using the 20th anniversary today of the murder of a woman in Cheshire to make a new appeal for information, as no one has ever been convicted. Tracy Mertens, who was from Rochdale, was doused in petrol and burned on the steps of a church at Eton near Congleton. She died 12 hours later. The wife of former Burnley and Preston player Clark Carlisle has said she's been overwhelmed by the support shown for him after he was hit by a lorry yesterday. Officials from the PFA have visited him in hospital, and Burnley Football Club say there will be a minute's applause to show their support at their Boxing Day match. Liverpool City Council is warning the Premier League to bring the kick-off time for February's Merseyside derby at Goodison Park forward, or it could take legal action. The game is due to start at 5:30 on Saturday the 7th, but the council and police are concerned that it will give supporters more time to drink before the game and it could disrupt the city centre. And Manchester City players spread some Christmas joy earlier today as they delivered presents to patients at Manchester Children's Hospital. Captain Vincent Kompany and Yaya Toure even found time for a game of table football. Kompany says the children are an inspiration and it's always emotional.
As a parent of two children myself, I can only imagine what they are going through, the children themselves, but also the parents and the families. But it's so important for us to come, and sometimes it's only a moment that we give them, but it's worth every effort, and I'm really glad that we can do this.
And now we can return to Roger and Annabelle at St John the Evangelist Church in Accrington.
Naomi, thank you very much. Well, you join us back at St John the Evangelist Church here in Accrington. This is the East Lancashire Concert Band playing, and they were playing earlier the Pals March, but this is, of course, Silent Night. Let's speak to one of the band's members now, Ian McGuinness. The band and the Accrington Pals have a real historical link, don't they?
Well, the band was founded in 1842 as a military band, and was at the epicentre of every community event which took place up to and including the recruitment for the Great War under the initiative of General Kitchener. We discovered when we checked the history about 2 years ago that the band led a parade through the town of Accrington to celebrate the recruitment of the 1,000 men necessary to bring the battalion up to strength.
So a really important historical link, but one that was lost a little bit over the years.
The history of the band was fairly well documented up to the turn of the century, and there was quite a gap when we started to take an interest in it from 1900 up to 1920. We have made some progress in plugging those gaps, and of course with the commemorations over the next 5 years of the Great War, we will be involved with that.
Ian, thank you so much. It is a beautiful sound, isn't it? The sound of Silent Night, and it evokes thoughts of one of the Great War's greatest legends when, on Christmas Day 1914, the British soldiers heard German troops singing it from their trenches. Now, that one act inspired both sides to lay down their arms and cross no man's land and come together for one day of peace.
Famously, of course, there were also a football match or two played in the mud between the two front lines. And now a new exhibition commemorating that has opened at the National Football Museum in Manchester. And children from 5 of the region's schools have recorded this carol with the help of some school children from Germany, as Judy Hobson reports.
It was a moment of humanity in 4 years of horror, when in 1914 British and German troops briefly stopped killing each other to wish the enemy the compliments of the season. Here it's even formed the centrepiece of a supermarket ad campaign. But this year the Christmas truce is being remembered much closer to home. This performance is to mark the opening of an exhibition about football during the Great War. Rehearsals started 3 weeks ago.
How amazing that they all stopped and
two enemies got together.
I think it's really significant that people know why we're singing it because it was such an important thing to remember.
Opera singers have been helping to coach children from 5 schools around the region.
It was amazing how many of the kids, it kind of really meant something to them and they really wanted to get involved.
A week later, the 5 schools have come together to record the song. Pupils in Germany and Belgium have provided the backing track.
It's like a choir bringing everyone together, and I think that's really significant.
It's really hard singing in German. We have to try and learn it.
Finally, it's the day of the performance at the National Football Museum.
Quite nervous, but excited.
I think it went really well, and I think after like the 3 weeks of practicing, you could really tell that you could see all the work that had been put into it, and I think everything came together.
I was really proud of them, and especially remembering the German, remembering all those words for the first verse.
I think it shows you the power of music really, and how it can penetrate right across the curriculum. So a lot of the pupils that are involved here today were using it within history.
You can hear the recorded track at the National Football Museum. Judy Hobson, BBC North West Tonight, Manchester.
And as Judy said, that exhibition at the National Football Museum is open now.
Right, let's go over to someone else who's joined us from the studio now, Diane, who I think is the fairy on the Christmas tree.
Yes, and the Christmas tree is looking really lovely here in the church. It looks really pretty. Now, in a moment, I'll have the forecast for Christmas, which actually looks pretty good. It looks like it will be dry and bright. But before that, let's take a look at a report from 100 years ago, when things were much bleaker in every respect.
Winter at the broken bridges across those beautiful, stately rivers. Winter brushing its first dustings of white on Europe's new and terrible landscapes, on the rubble and charred wood that once were towns, villages and homes. Cold along the dunes near the North Sea. Cold in Flanders, in Picardy and in Lorraine. No stir of wings sweeps softly by, no angel comes with blinding light. Beneath the wild and wintry sky, no shepherds watch their flocks tonight. In the dull thunder of the wind, we hear the cruel guns afar. But in the glowering heavens, we find no guiding, solitary star.
Well, conditions for us for this Christmas look like being pretty good if you're travelling, if you're out and about. I can't promise you a white Christmas, but I can promise you a largely dry one. Hasn't been dry at all today. If we take a look at our chart, well, I think you can see that things have been very, very wet, absolutely everywhere, and some places haven't seen the worst of the rain. It's still to come. Cumbria in particular has seen some horrendous conditions, significant amounts of rain. Localised flooding has been a problem. But the good news for Cumbria is we're just starting to see the back edge of that rain. It's pushing through, and as you head through the next couple of hours, you should become dry. Isle of Man should follow in your footsteps as well. And then for the rest of us, this rain continues to push down as we head through the night. So many places will see the worst of it as you head through the next couple of hours. The motorways are dreadful. There's so much surface water. There is so much spray around. But eventually, as you can see from the charts, it all starts to clear as we head toward dawn. So by 5 o'clock in the morning, it should just be a thing of the past, and most places will be bone dry. Overnight temperatures, well, the skies will start to clear, and in parts of Cumbria you may see a temperature of around 2 degrees, but I think for many of us we'll peg at about 4 or 5, and along the coast 6 and maybe even a 7 here and there. So it's not a really cold night, but you will start to see the mild conditions moving out, and over the next couple of days this is when our temperatures start to fall away. So we're going to go into tomorrow, and it's an entirely different day. From the word go, it should be dry and it should be bright. Now the fly in the ointment is we will see 1 or 2 showers working their way through every now and then, and as they rise over any high ground, I think the Cumbrian Fells, I think over the tops of the Pennines into the Peak District, there could be a little bit of sleet from time to time within those showers. But for most of us, a little spot of rain every now and then. But for many of us, it's dry all the way through. So it's a really good day to get out and about. And that breeze is still notable. And your daytime temperatures do not rise from the night times in many places. So you'll be talking about 6 and 7 degrees. And then for tomorrow night, again, it's going to be another fairly chilly one. I think temperatures will fall down to around 2 degrees. But for Christmas Day itself, very similar
similar to Christmas Eve. It should be largely dry, just a light shower from time to time, but your temperatures 6 and 7. Now, Christmas night into Boxing Day, that's a cold one with temperatures falling down below freezing. Back to Annabelle and Roger.
Oh, it is a cold one. Diane, thank you very much.
Come and join us, Di. Come and join us.
And we must say a big thank you to everybody here at this beautiful church for letting us host our programme here tonight, and to the fantastic band. We'll be hearing a little bit more from them in a moment. This is it. This is our last programme for the Christmas period, but we are going to be back with bulletins throughout the Christmas season, and we'll be back with our next full programme on January the 2nd.
It's been a good year.
It seems a long way away, that,
Big
doesn't
plans
it?
for Christmas?
Coming to work a lot.
Oh,
Aren't they cruel?
Keeping you company.
I will, and it'll be nice if you can keep me company as well.
Thank you so much from all of us to all of you. A merry and peaceful Christmas, and we will leave you with "O Come, All Ye Faithful."
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Happy Christmas.
On BBC One, where we make dreams come true.
I'm asking.
And I'm answering.
The great thing about this show is that one lucky couple will be playing to win the prizes of their dreams.
Win your wish list, featuring the National Lottery Draws, Saturday 27th of December on BBC One.
I'm back. Now get inside the tufts.
Come on, it's Christmas, the North Pole. Who are you gonna call?
What seems to be the problem?
Doctor Who. Christmas Day at 6:15 on BBC One.